Welcome to. Today we're tackling a thesis that is, let's just say it's radical. It's this idea that systemic failure of Hollywood isn't some act, but a direct self.
That's right. Our sources are claiming this crisis comes from a very deliberate ideological choice to actively destroy or suppress one specific thing, attract.
And not just ignore it, but destroy it. The source material argues this isn't just about, failing to cast the most beautiful people.
No, it's about a calculated aesthetic decline. This deliberate choice, according to the analysis we're looking at, is directly responsible for billions of dollars in lost revenue, systemic failures, and a kind of, ideological self-sabotage. They basically say Hollywood is choosing failure over profit to satisfy internal spite.
Okay, let's unpack that. Our source material today is a pretty deep analysis of current Hollywood trends, celebrity culture, business decisions, and, crucially, applied social psychology. Specifically, it focuses on the halo effect. So our mission is to really dissect horror that casting and aesthetic choices aren't driven by profit anymore, or even talent, but by something much darker. The sources call it jealous, spite, and selfish.
And the most shocking claim right out of the gate is that this move toward what the source bluntly calls ugliness, or hiding beauty when you do cast it, is a systematic choice.
Systematic?
Yeah, and that this decision was, in the minds of the people making the calls, more important than the money itself, directly costing them billions of dollars that, they desperately need right now.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, how big of a deal this is supposed to be, we have to establish a baseline. It really wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 decades, that Hollywood openly valued.
Oh, absolutely. It was a primary selling.
You had figures like Kate Beckinsale, Jessica Alba, Megan Fox, and of course the gold standard Monroe. The sources even look at UK TV, like with Billie Piper as Rose Tyler in Doctor Who.
Right. She was explicitly brought in to be the attractive element, to broaden the show's appeal. Beauty was just a normal, integral part of blockbuster entertainment. It was a given.
And this is where the source draws that sharp contrast. They admit beauty hasn't vanished. They point to people like Sydney Sweeney as a modern example.
Yeah, they even note how she's channeling that classic Marilyn Monroe look.
But the trend in Hollywood production, according to this analysis, is toward an enforced aesthetic decline. And the key is, if an attractive person is cast, the directive
to suppress it, yeah. The makeup, the hair, the costumes, even the lighting, all designed to drag them down to, as the source puts it, the level of ugly so they don't dominate the screen.
That is a very harsh way to frame it. But why? Why would they do that? Why spend money to cover up the one thing that has historically always...
Well, the source blames it directly on what they call the age of equality. The theory is, and it's a cynical one, that for some people in the audience, and more importantly, for the people making the decisions, seeing someone who is just objectively more beautiful than them, it destroys your entire worldview.
So they cover them up to avoid offending people?
To avoid offending those specific sensitivities, yeah. It's about protecting the internal Hollywood environment and this external idea of equality.
And this is where Sydney Sweeney becomes the key example, right? Because she has that beauty, but she's put in roles where it's actively neutral. Let's talk about
Madam Web is the ultimate case study for them. The source claims the suppression was so aggressive, so maximal in that film, that you could literally watch the whole movie and not even realize Sydney Sweeney was in it.
Seriously?
The host of the source video said they didn't recognize her until they looked up the cast list after. They had to go back and rewatch scenes just to confirm it was her. They call it the definitive example of hiding your light under a bushel.
So how are they doing this? What are the specific mechanics of this supposed practice?
It's all in the aesthetic choices.
Yeah.
The analysis points to, muted color palettes, avoiding vibrant colors that make people look alive. They talk about specific makeup techniques, no contouring, really flat matte lighting that kills all the natural shadows.
And the costumes.
And especially the costuming. Oversized, shapeless, deliberately drab clothes that just erase the human figure. The goal isn't just to make her look like a normal person. It's to make her look visually unremarkable, to neutralize her.
And the sources say this isn't a one-off. They have other examples of this.
Oh, absolutely. They bring up the new Superman movie casting for Hawk Girl. They compare how she looked in the movie, which they said was totally generic and forgettable, to how she looks on the red carpet.
Which is stunning.
Exactly. And the source argues that if she had been styled in the movie to look like she does in real life, the film definitely would have been more successful. That gap between potential and reality is, for them, the proof. It's a conscious choice.
This even filters down to the superhero.
Yes, the costume shift is huge. They contrast Jessica Alba's Fantastic Four costume, which was all about aesthetic appeal, with the rumored look for the new movie. They say the new aesthetic is a move toward the completely unappealing, the utilitarian.
So, if this is a systematic choice, we have to get to the financial argument. The source treats this as just a simple, ancient fact. Attractiveness sells.
They are incredibly rigid on this point. They basically say anyone who denies this is either too stupid or too evil to accept basic human wisdom. The money is the easiest part of the argument to prove. People are drawn to beauty. It translates to dollars.
And the figures they cite for Sydney Sweeney's impact, they're just staggering.
They claim she surpassed Kim Kardashian, even Beyonce, with a $400 million impact value. And that's not just her net worth. It's brand uplift, Q scores, ad revenue conversion.
So it's her ability to sell things for other brands.
Instantly and massively. That's the power they claim Hollywood is just refusing to tap into.
Okay, let's break down that American Eagle case study, because the source presents this as the perfect example of what Hollywood has forgotten. The jeans sold out immediately.
A massive, massive success. And the source's analysis of why is the crucial part. They say that even though women were buying the jeans, the ads were unapologetically aimed at the male gaze.
So she was presented as a woman written by a man for men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Playful, aware of her attractiveness, comfortable with it. And the behavior link they make is just brutally simple.
What is it?
The jeans sold out because men like the advert and women want to wear things that men like. They frame it as this undeniable biological reality that Hollywood is spending billions to pretend doesn't exist.
It's a huge contrast to the modern celebrity attitude they describe, which is sort of, I dressed up for me, don't you dare look.
Right. But okay, that's a pretty extreme generalization about female motivation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does the source even address the political risk of targeting the male gaze so openly you could alienate a huge part of your audience?
That's a great question. And the source's answer is, well, it's very blunt. They dismiss the political risk entirely.
Wow.
They argue that things like rejecting the gaze are just surface-level luxury. When you put that up against a deep evolutionary biological drive, the desire to be seen as valuable, the biology always wins. So, in their view, Hollywood is wasting billions trying to please a political stance that doesn't actually affect what people buy.
Wow. Okay. So that financial success is tied directly to this deep psychological mechanism. If attractiveness is worth $400 million, we have to talk about the halo effect.
Which the source says Hollywood is actively fighting against.
Yeah, fighting against thousands of years of human evolution. The halo effect is, it's defined as a really well-researched, completely non-controversial topic in social psychology.
And it's basically the idea that we perceive attractive people to be smarter, funnier, more capable.
More likable, all of it. And the key is that it's about perception, not reality. But perception is what drives instinct and behavior. It's the most powerful tool Hollywood has.
And trying to rewire that is just a fool's errand, according.
A complete fool's errand. You can't just undo biology. If you work against these instincts, you will fail financially. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. It's going to affect your audience, your box office, everything.
And they provide some pretty compelling real-world data to back this up, stuff that goes way beyond movies.
The effects are profound. In professional life, attractive people earn substantially more money. There's a clear wage premium. They get promoted more often. They're rated as more competent, even when their skills are identical.
But the most shocking example they use is the legal system.
Yeah, that's where it gets really stark. These sources cite research showing that attractive people are less likely to be arrested, and if they are, less likely to be convicted. But here's the nuance.
What's the nuance?
That beneficial effect, that shield of perceived innocence, it was confined solely to females.
Wait, really? Why? What's the speculation there?
They get into evolutionary psychology. The idea is that we subconsciously view male criminality differently. A less attractive male criminal is seen as maybe more dangerous, a bigger threat. But the absence of beauty in a female defendant doesn't trigger that same high threat alarm. So that protective halo is only really activated when it's combined with female beauty. It just shows how deep and weirdly specific these instincts.
But this also brings up a fascinating counterpoint, that being too attractive can actually make you lazy.
Yes. There was an actress mentioned in the book All's Fair who said that not being conventionally attractive actually helped her career. She said it forced her to develop a personality, inner resources.
She had to become something rather than being born something.
Exactly. Whereas natural beauty, if you rely on it too much, can lead to complacency.
Okay, let's bring this back to Hollywood with the Gal Gadot example. The source uses her as the ultimate case study for how the halo effect can act as a buffer.
Yeah, they are absolutely unsparing here. They state pretty plainly that they believe she can't act. They cite specific lines like, I need you to give me the stone, as evidence of, technical problems.
So the argument is that her attractiveness was so powerful it basically shielded her from criticism.
It was a near-perfect psychological shield. It took decades for people to look past the visual and start noticing the performance or the script deficiency. Her beauty was a massive, powerful inoculation against failure.
Wow.
So people willingly forgave bad scripts, poor acting, even the ideology. And the source argues that as she naturally aged, that shield started to fade, the halo effect became less potent, and suddenly everyone started noticing her other talents, or the lack of them.
So the lesson for Hollywood, according to this, is pretty simple.
Incredibly simple. If they had just put tens, as the source calls them, in the lead roles, people would have liked the movies more and would have forgiven them for, quote, a multitude of sins.
That idea of a forgiving shield leads right into the next, using attractiveness for storytelling, for shorthand.
Right. In a 90-minute movie, you don't have time for tons of exposition. You need the audience on board immediately.
And the easiest way to do that, the quickest shorthand trick, is attractive.
It's instant connection. The halo effect makes the audience project good qualities onto the character. Competence, kindness, whatever. The source has this brutally cynical example. Oh, I care what happens to his wife. She's hot. Okay. You just jump right past the setup.
And we've seen this used successfully for decades, right? Especially in action movies where believability is already stretched.
Oh, for sure. They point to shows like Alias or Nikita. Nobody had a problem with Jennifer Garner or Maggie Q beating up guys twice their size, even though it was completely unbelievable.
Because they look hot doing it.
Exactly. And we're presented for the male gaze. Alias is the prime example, with a different wig and costume every single episode. It was all about maximizing that aesthetic appeal.
But this shorthand works in reverse, too. It can signal other things to the audience.
Right. It's dual purpose. If you cast someone who is weird-looking or unconventional, it's a signal that they're probably a villain or here for comic relief. They're not someone you need to invest in deeply.
This is why the source is so critical of the term conventionally attractive.
They hate that term. They argue it's just a rhetorical weapon to deny that objective attractiveness even exists. They say conventional just means this is what everyone likes. It's based on measurable biological things like symmetry.
So calling it conventionally attractive is an attempt to delegitimize what the majority of people actually prefer.
That's their argument, yeah. It's creating an artificial moral high ground.
And if you choose not to use this shorthand, if you cast someone who isn't immediately appealing, you're just creating an obstacle.
A huge avoidable obstacle. They use The Last of Us as an example. The whole story relies on you caring about that father-daughter bond from the first minute. If you create an uphill struggle to make the audience connect, you're just making your job harder. And in a 90-minute movie, that's a catastrophic mistake.
Okay, so we've got the financial costs and the psychological why. Now we get to the most extreme part of the motive, the claim that destroying beauty was actually more important to the decision makers than money or even spreading their own ideology.
It's a really harsh assessment of their priority. The source admits that, the push for equality and not being offensive are all mixed up, but they insist there's a hierarchy, and eliminating objective beauty was at the very top.
And their proof is that rhetorical question.
Right. If you really wanted to push your worldview successfully, why would you actively harm your chances and ensure failure? The only logical conclusion for the source is that the motive isn't rational ideology. It's something internal. It's spite.
And the case of Cynthia Erivo on the GQ cover is used as a specific detailed example.
This is a really interesting one. They analyze her appearance on the cover, and they use some very inflammatory language to describe the styling. Nosferatu, Gothic Terminator 3.
But the key insight is what they call the above-the-fold principle.
Right, the old newspaper analogy. Yeah. You put the most important stuff, the headline, the picture of the beautiful woman above the fold, because that's what sells the paper. And the source claims that putting Erivo on that cover, styled that way, actively lost them money.
Which reveals the motivation.
Exactly. They say they know it loses them money, and yet her being there was more important to them than money itself, especially when GQ had its own red carpet event happening, filled with traditionally attractive stars they could have put on the cover for an easy profit.
The source also uses a specific clip of Erivo and Ariana Grande to illustrate what they see as a coddled mentality.
Yeah, they break down this moment where Erivo seems to be scared of a helicopter that's miles away. The source sees this as evidence of someone so privileged, so lacking real problems, that a distant noise becomes a psychological threat.
And Ariana Grande joking about using the force to move it.
It's just more proof for them that these people live in a bubble where they think they can control reality with their feelings.
So if it's not ideology and it's not money, this brings us to what the source claims is the real drive, pulling the ladder up behind ourselves.
This is the core of it. The blame is placed squarely on jealousy, spite, and envy, coming from people in power, specifically older, aging actors and actresses. And Scarlett Johansson is their key example.
Because she used to be the Sydney Sweeney of her time.
The epitome of the TNA character. They point to that strutting scene in Iron Man 2 as proof she was perfectly happy to be celebrated for her looks back then.
So what changed?
Well, the source applies that brutal Leonardo DiCaprio logic. Once she aged past what they call the optimal fertility point around her late 20s, she couldn't get those roles anymore. The natural career path would be to play the mom, the mentor,
But
Instead, they claim she and a whole generation of others chose to pull the ladder up. They suddenly started criticizing their past roles, arguing that focusing on sex appeal was a bad thing.
which was really a self-preserving strategy.
A profoundly cynical one, according to the source. By making youth and beauty morally wrong, you eliminate your competition. You get rid of the younger actresses and preserve your own job and status. You create a new way to virtue signal that also happens to protect your ego and your banking.
And this aligns with other examples they pull of people advocating for their own specific groups.
Absolute. They bring up Kristen Stewart being angry that Hollywood had gone backwards for women, and the source suggests that anger was really about the statistically devastating impact on her own career.
Then there's the Wanda Sykes clip.
Which is just so blunt. She says she'd hire a woman over a slightly better man, and definitely a black woman. The source uses this to argue that the debate isn't about discrimination. It's about which standards you discriminate with. Hers are identity-based, which benefit her, over competence-based, which would make better movies.
And the Jinx Monsoon example.
Arguing that someone like me should be Mystique, a shapeshifter. The source just points out the absurdity. The whole point of the character is transformation. The demand isn't about the story. It's about advancing the interests of one specific group.
And they generalize this with an analysis of a BuzzFeed.
Yeah, a list of 21 actors calling for more diversity. The source found that 10 of the 21 would benefit immediately and directly for the exact thing they're arguing. The conclusion is just unavoidable for them. A lot of this activism is just career advancement in disguise.
Okay, so if Hollywood is so ideologically opposed to beauty and youth, we have to talk about revealed preference. What do their actions actually show?
And the contradiction, the source claims, is just overwhelming.
Right. Despite all the talk, the prevalence of extreme cosmetic surgery proves they know the truth deep down.
The desperation is the smoking gun. They detail all these grotesque procedures, filler that distorts the face, salmon sperm injections, all this painful stuff from the book All's Fair, and the result is rarely good. They end up looking like weird bug people.
That they keep doing it.
They keep doing it because they innately understand that youth and beauty matter more than any public stance. Their actions are the lie detector.
And we see the same thing with the narrative around weight and fitness.
Yes, the healthy at any size movement vanished overnight, they claim, as soon as easy weight loss drugs became available. They use Amy Schumer deleting old pictures of herself as proof. The second people could be lazy and still lose weight, the narrative flipped from acceptance to, I want to be that size.
So if these are all just luxury beliefs, what's the cost of keeping them now that Hollywood isn't financially stable anymore?
They can't afford the delusion. That's the bottom line. The guaranteed hits are gone. The cash reserves are low. They have to get back to reality and do what works, regardless of who gets pissed off or feels inferior.
It's interesting, though, that the source notes men in movies haven't really gone through the same aesthetic suppression.
That's a key distinction. They argue men age better on screen and are judged less harshly. But the tastes of the people in charge are still influencing who gets cast. We're seeing a different type of male lead now.
Which brings us to the twink outlook.
The source uses that term to describe a trend toward casting male leads who are very youthful, slender, sometimes androgynous. Timothée Chalamet is the prime example. They contrast that with the rugged, masculine action stars of the past, like Pierce Brosnan.
So the casting reflects the personal tastes of the execs, not the audience.
And the source's solution is radical. Change the people in charge. If their tastes don't align with the audience, you're going to fail. So you need to hire taste reflects the market.
Which brings this whole deep dive back to the simplest.
It's the lowest hanging fruit. Beauty is the easiest win. It's worth billions. And they already have the assets. You see them on every red carpet. They just need to bring back the appealing costumes, let the stars look hot, let them be adored by the audience without the guilt trip.
And the message for anyone inside Hollywood who opposes shift, aggressive.
Extremely aggressive. The source concludes that anyone standing in the way of this, anyone pushing the suppression out of spite or jealousy, is an enemy of Hollywood, a problem to be solved. They need to be fired because they're actively blocking billions in revenue. Hollywood needs, quote, a whole plethora of Sydney Sweeney.
This has been a fascinating and, a highly provocative look at the source material's art. That Hollywood's crisis is self-inflicted, driven by spite, and a denial of basic psychology.
To just summarize the key takeaway for you, the argument is that Hollywood is bleeding billions by ignoring the power of attractiveness. They're choosing to protect the egos and self-interest of people in power, even if it guarantees their projects fail financially and ideologically.
Okay, for a final thought to leave you with, let's connect this back to a core human. The entire argument from the source material really hinges on one simple biological.
The source makes this definitive statement that women want to be wanted by men and that Hollywood just needs to give men what they want to be profitable. Now, if we accept that extremely generalized premise true for a moment, if that desire really governs audience behavior, what specific immediate change must Hollywood make today beyond just have to ensure profitability tomorrow, given how desperate? Think about the stories, the genre, the costumes that have to be reversed, all through that cold, hard lens of revealed preference and that one single biological imperative. That is the reality test they're facing.